The blood on Zelda Turner's hands wouldn't wash away no matter how hard she scrubbed. Not because it was still there, but because the memory had stained deeper than her skin could ever hold. She stood in front of the cracked mirror in her rented room above the general store in Colfax, New Mexico. Staring at her reflection, she barely recognized anymore. The year was 1878, and she had been running for 3 months straight, ever since that terrible night in Santa Fe when everything had fallen apart. Her dark auburn hair hung limp around her shoulders, and her green eyes looked hollow, haunted by things no 22-year-old woman should have witnessed, let alone participated in. The knock on her door made her jump, her heart racing as it always did now when unexpected sounds broke the silence. She grabbed the small derringer she kept tucked in her skirt pocket, approaching the door with careful steps. "Miss Turner, it's Mrs. Henderson from downstairs. Just wanted to let you know your rent is due tomorrow." Zelda exhaled slowly, releasing her grip on the weapon. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. I'll have it ready." She listened to the older woman's footsteps retreat down the narrow staircase before moving to the window. The main street of Colfax stretched below, dusty and busy with the afternoon traffic of horses, wagons, and people going about their honest lives. Honest. That word felt like a knife twisting in her gut. She hadn't been honest in over 2 years, not since she had gotten tangled up with the Garrett Gang and their schemes. Zelda had told herself it was survival. After her parents died of cholera when she was 19, leaving her with nothing but debts and a dress shop that barely broke even, she had been desperate. When Marcus Garrett had walked into her shop with his smooth words and promises of easy money, she had been vulnerable enough to listen. It started small, using her shop as a front to pass messages between gang members, then storing stolen goods in her back room. She told herself she wasn't really hurting anyone, but then came Santa Fe. The bank robbery that wasn't supposed to involve anyone getting hurt. Except the guard had pulled his weapon, and Marcus had shot him without hesitation. The man had a family, a wife and 3 children who would grow up without a father. And Zelda had been there, holding the horses, complicit in every way that mattered. She had run that very night, taking only what she could carry and disappearing before Marcus could rope her into the next job. She had heard through whispers in the towns she passed through that Marcus was looking for her, angry that she had abandoned the gang. He didn't like loose ends, and Zelda knew too much about their operations. Now she was here in Colfax, trying to start over with a new name, well, her real name that the gang had never known, and the last of her money. She had found work as a seamstress for Mrs. Chen, a Chinese woman who ran a laundry and alterations business and didn't ask too many questions about her past. It was honest work, the first honest work Zelda had done in too long, but the shame followed her like a shadow. The sun was setting over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that would have been beautiful if Zelda could let herself feel anything beautiful anymore. She needed to eat, needed to keep her strength up, so she wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and headed downstairs to the small restaurant next to the general store. The place was busy with ranch hands and miners, men who worked hard for their pay and spent it on hot meals and cold beer. Zelda kept her head down, finding a small table in the corner where she could watch the door. Old habits from her time with the gang, always knowing where the exits were, always watching for threats. She had just ordered a plate of stew when she heard a voice that made her blood run cold. Well, if it isn't our little seamstress." Zelda looked up to see Virgil Hayes, one of Marcus Garrett's men, standing by her table with a mean smile on his weathered face. He was a tall, thin man with cruel eyes and a reputation for violence that made even other outlaws nervous. "I don't know what you're talking about," Zelda said quietly, her hand moving toward her pocket, Virgil laughed, pulling out the chair across from her and sitting down without invitation. "Don't play stupid, Zelda. Marcus has been looking all over for you. He's not happy about you running out on us." "I'm not going back," Zelda said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm done with that life." "See, that's not really how it works," Virgil said, leaning forward. "You know too much. Marcus wants you back with the gang or he wants you dead. Those are your only two options." Before Zelda could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "The lady said she's not interested. I suggest you respect that." Both Zelda and Virgil turned to see a man standing beside their table. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-weathered skin and dark brown hair that curled slightly at his collar. His blue eyes were steady and calm, but there was steel underneath that calm. He wore the practical clothes of a working cowboy: dusty boots, worn denim pants, a simple shirt, and a leather vest. A Colt revolver hung at his hip with the ease of someone who knew how to use it. Virgil's eyes narrowed. "This isn't your business, cowboy." "I'm making it my business," the man said evenly. "The lady wants to eat her dinner in peace. You need to move along." Virgil stood up slowly, his hand hovering near his own weapon. The restaurant had gone quiet, everyone watching the confrontation unfold. Zelda's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't want anyone else getting hurt because of her. "Virgil, please just go," she said quietly. "I'll talk to Marcus myself. Just not here, not now." It was a lie, but she needed to defuse the situation before bullets started flying. Virgil looked between her and the cowboy, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he stepped back. "Marcus is staying at the old Preston Ranch, 5 miles north of here," Virgil said. "You've got until tomorrow night to show up or he's coming to find you. And next time, your cowboy friend won't be enough to stop what happens." Virgil turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving a wake of tension behind him. Slowly, the other patrons returned to their meals and conversations. The cowboy pulled out the chair Virgil had vacated and sat down, his expression concerned. "You all right, miss?" he asked. Zelda nodded, though her hands were shaking. "Thank you for stepping in, but you shouldn't have. These aren't good people." "Neither am I when pushed," the cowboy said with a slight smile. "Name's Lucas Quinn. I work at the Triple R Ranch about 10 miles east of town." "Zelda Turner," she said, then immediately regretted giving her real name. But something about Lucas Quinn's open, honest face made her want to be truthful, even if it was dangerous. "Zelda," Lucas repeated, as if testing how the name felt. "Pretty name. Now, I don't mean to pry, but it seems like you might be in some trouble. The kind of trouble that doesn't go away on its own." Zelda looked down at the table, shame burning in her chest. "You don't want to get involved. I made some bad choices and now I'm paying for them. It's my burden to carry." "Maybe," Lucas said, "but out here we believe in helping our neighbors. And from where I'm sitting, you look like someone who could use a friend." The waitress brought Zelda's stew, giving Lucas a questioning look. He ordered coffee, settling back in his chair as if he had all the time in the world. Zelda picked up her spoon but found she had lost her appetite. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You don't know me. For all you know, I'm exactly the kind of person your mother warned you about." Lucas smiled at that, a genuine warmth in his expression. "My mother died when I was 12. But before she passed, she taught me that everyone carries their own weight, and sometimes that weight gets too heavy to carry alone. She also taught me that people deserve second chances, that we all make mistakes." Zelda felt tears pricking at her eyes, but she blinked them back. "Some mistakes can't be fixed with a second chance." "I don't believe that," Lucas said simply. "I've seen men who did terrible things in the war, men who thought they could never be anything but killers. Some of them found their way back to being decent people. It's never too late to change course." You don't understand, Zelda whispered. Someone died because of me, a man with a family. I can't take that back. I can't make that right. Lucas was quiet for a moment, his blue eyes studying her face. You were there when it happened. Zelda nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. Did you pull the trigger? No, but I might as well have. I was part of it. I helped them. But you left, Lucas said. You ran away from that life. That means something, Zelda. That means you have a conscience, that you know right from wrong. Some people don't have that. They do terrible things and sleep just fine at night. You're not one of those people. How can you possibly know that? Zelda asked, her voice breaking. Because if you were, you wouldn't be sitting here drowning in guilt, Lucas said gently. You'd be planning your next crime, not trying to work an honest job and start over. They sat in silence for a while, Zelda slowly eating her stew while Lucas sipped his coffee. The restaurant began to empty as the evening wore on, ranch hands heading back to their bunkhouses, miners to their camps. Finally, Lucas spoke again. This Marcus fellow, he's dangerous. Very, Zelda said. He's killed at least 6 men that I know of, maybe more. And he's smart, which makes him even more dangerous. He plans everything carefully. And he wants you back because you know his plans, his operations. That, and because he doesn't like people leaving. He sees it as betrayal, as disrespect. Marcus has a big ego. Lucas nodded slowly, turning his coffee cup in his hands. I've dealt with men like that before. They're all bluster until someone stands up to them, then they fold. Marcus doesn't fold, Zelda said urgently. Please, you need to stay away from this. I'll figure something out. Maybe I'll leave town tonight, head west toward Arizona. Running won't solve anything, Lucas said. If this Marcus is as determined as you say, he'll just keep hunting you. Eventually, you'll run out of places to hide. Then what am I supposed to do? Zelda asked, frustration and fear making her voice sharp. Go to the sheriff. Tell him I was part of a gang that robbed banks and killed a man. I'll end up in jail or worse at the end of a rope. The sheriff here, Tom Bridger, he's a fair man, Lucas said. But you're right that going to him might complicate things. What if there was another way? What if you could make it clear to Marcus that you're under protection, that coming after you would cost him more than it's worth? Protection from who? You. Zelda shook her head. No offense, but you're one cowboy against an entire gang. I'm not just one cowboy, Lucas said. I have friends, good men who work the Triple R with me. Our boss, Richard Ramirez, he's former cavalry. Fought Apaches and outlaws for 20 years before he started ranching. He doesn't tolerate people who prey on the innocent, and he's got enough men and resources to make Marcus think twice. Zelda wanted to hope, but hope had burned her too many times. Why would your boss help me? He doesn't know me. Because I'd ask him to, Lucas said simply. And because it's the right thing to do. Look, Zelda, I know you're scared. I know you think you don't deserve help because of your past, but everyone deserves a chance to make things right. Let me talk to Richard, see if we can't work something out. I can't ask you to do that, Zelda said, though part of her desperately wanted to accept his offer. You're not asking, I'm offering. Lucas reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. His palm was calloused from years of hard work, warm and steady. Please, let me help. Zelda looked into his blue eyes and saw only sincerity. No judgment, no ulterior motives, just genuine concern for a stranger in trouble. It had been so long since anyone had looked at her like that, like she was worth saving. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Lucas smiled and it transformed his whole face. Good. Now you can't stay in that room above the general store. Too easy to get trapped if Marcus's men come looking. Do you have anywhere else you can go tonight? Zelda shook her head. Not really. I don't know anyone here except Mrs. Chen, and I can't put her in danger. Lucas thought for a moment. My sister, Alina, she lives in town with her husband. They run the feed store. She's tough as nails and wouldn't think twice about taking you in for a few days. Let me talk to her, explain the situation. Are you sure? Zelda asked. This is asking a lot. Eleanor's always telling me I don't visit enough anyway, Lucas said with a grin. Come on. Let's get you somewhere safe for the night, then tomorrow I'll ride out to the Triple R and talk to Richard. They left the restaurant together, Lucas walking close enough to be protective but not so close as to be improper. The streets of Colfax were quieter now, lit by oil lamps glowing in windows and the soft light of the rising moon. Lucas led her to a neat house on the edge of town, with a well-tended garden and smoke curling from the chimney. A woman answered Lucas's knock, her face breaking into a smile when she saw her brother. She was shorter than Lucas, with the same dark hair and blue eyes, though hers held a sharpness that suggested she didn't suffer fools gladly. Lucas, what brings you to town in the middle of the week? Then she noticed Zelda standing behind him, and her expression shifted to curiosity. Eleanor, this is Zelda Turner. She's in some trouble and needs a safe place to stay for a few days. I was hoping you and James might put her up. Eleanor's sharp eyes assessed Zelda quickly but not unkindly. What kind of trouble? The outlaw kind, Lucas said honestly. But Zelda's trying to leave that life behind. She just needs some help doing it. Eleanor was quiet for a moment, then stepped back from the door. Come in, both of you. James is already asleep. Early morning tomorrow at the store, but we can talk in the kitchen. The house was warm and cozy, filled with the comfortable clutter of a happy home. Eleanor put a kettle on for tea and settled them at the kitchen table. Lucas explained the situation, leaving out some of the more dangerous details, but making it clear that Zelda was in genuine danger. When he finished, Eleanor looked at Zelda directly. Did you hurt anyone yourself? No, Zelda said, but I helped people who did. I was a coward who let fear and desperation make my choices for me. But you left when you realized how bad it had gotten. Yes, maybe too late, but yes. Eleanor nodded slowly. My brother's a good judge of character, and if he thinks you're worth helping, that's good enough for me. You can stay in the spare room upstairs, but I need you to promise me something. Anything, Zelda said. Promise me you'll actually take the second chance Lucas is offering you. Don't run away again. Face this head on and come out the other side as someone you can be proud of. Zelda felt tears slipping down her cheeks before she could stop them. I promise. I'm so tired of running, of being ashamed of who I am. I want to be better. I just don't know if I can. Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed Zelda's hand. You can. It won't be easy, but you can. And you won't be alone. Lucas stayed for a while longer, drinking tea and helping his sister catch up on family news to ease the tension. Zelda watched him interact with Eleanor, seeing the genuine affection between them, the teasing and warmth that came from years of sibling bond. It made her ache for the family she had lost, for the simple comfort of belonging somewhere. Eventually, Lucas stood to leave. I'll head back to the ranch tonight, talk to Richard first thing in the morning. Eleanor, can you make sure Zelda stays inside tomorrow? If anyone comes looking for her, you don't know anything. We'll be fine, Eleanor assured him. You just be careful, these outlaws sound dangerous. Lucas smiled at his sister, then turned to Zelda. Try to get some rest. I know it's hard, but things are going to get better. I promise. Thank you, Zelda said, the words feeling inadequate for everything he was doing. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You don't need to repay me, Lucas said. Just keep that promise you made to Eleanor. That's payment enough. After Lucas left, Eleanor showed Zelda upstairs to a small but comfortable room with a real bed, clean sheets, and curtains on the window. It was the nicest place Zelda had stayed in months. The washroom is down the hall, Eleanor said. There's water in the pitcher and clean towels in the cupboard. Sleep as late as you need tomorrow. I'll be downstairs if you need anything." "Eleanor," Zelda said as the other woman turned to leave. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me either." Eleanor smiled. "Lucas told you our mother died when he was 12. What he probably didn't mention was that she was helping a family of freed slaves get further north when she caught pneumonia. She died believing that helping others was the most important thing a person could do. Lucas and I were raised on that belief. You need help, so we help. It's that simple." After Eleanor left, Zelda sat on the edge of the bed, letting the events of the evening wash over her. For the first time in months, she felt something other than fear and shame. She felt hope, fragile and tentative, but real. Lucas Quinn was like no man she had ever met before. He had looked at her with kindness instead of judgment, offered help instead of condemnation, and he had done it without expecting anything in return. Zelda changed into the nightgown Eleanor had left for her and climbed into bed. As she lay in the darkness, she thought about Lucas's words. We all deserve a second chance. Could it really be that simple? Could she really start over, build a new life from the ashes of her mistakes? She wanted to believe it. For the first time in a long time, she wanted to believe that tomorrow could be better than yesterday. The next morning, Zelda woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains and the smell of coffee drifting up from downstairs. She dressed quickly in her own clothes and made her way to the kitchen, where Eleanor was kneading bread dough while a pot of oatmeal bubbled on the stove. "Morning," Eleanor said cheerfully. "Hope you slept well. Coffee's on the table and breakfast will be ready in a few minutes. James already left for the store, but he knows you're here and he's fine with it." "Thank you," Zelda said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "I slept better than I have in months, actually." They ate breakfast together, and Zelda found herself relaxing in Eleanor's straightforward, no-nonsense company. Eleanor talked about her life running the feed store with her husband, about the challenges of keeping inventory and dealing with difficult customers. It was mundane conversation, but it felt wonderful to Zelda, a glimpse of the normal life she wanted so desperately to have. "Can I help you with anything today?" Zelda asked after breakfast. "I feel like I should be doing something to earn my keep." "Can you sew?" Eleanor asked. "Yes, very well actually. I ran a dress shop before everything went wrong." Eleanor's face lit up. "Perfect. I have a pile of mending that's been waiting for weeks. If you could tackle some of that, you'd be saving my life. My sewing skills are passable at best." Eleanor showed Zelda to a sunny corner of the parlor with a basket overflowing with clothes needing repair. Zelda set to work with needle and thread, finding comfort in the familiar motions. Her mother had taught her to sew when she was just a little girl, and the skill had served her well over the years. It felt good to be using that skill for something honest and helpful. The morning passed peacefully, with Eleanor bustling around the house doing various chores and Zelda working through the mending. But as noon approached, Zelda's anxiety began to creep back in. What was Lucas doing? Had he talked to his boss yet? What if Richard Ramirez refused to help? What if Marcus's men came looking for her, as if summoned by her worried thoughts? There was a harsh knock at the door. Eleanor and Zelda froze, looking at each other with wide eyes. The knock came again, more insistent this time. "Zelda Turner, we know you're in there. Marcus wants to talk to you." It was Virgil's voice, harsh and threatening. Eleanor immediately moved to the window, peering through the curtains. "There are 3 of them," she whispered, "all armed." "I have to go out there," Zelda said, her heart pounding. "I can't let them hurt you because of me." "Don't be ridiculous," Eleanor said sharply. "Lucas told you to stay here, so you're staying here. James keeps a rifle in the bedroom. I'll get it." "Eleanor, no," Zelda protested, but the other woman was already moving. The banging on the door continued, and then Zelda heard the sound of breaking glass. They were breaking in. Her hand flew to her pocket where her derringer was, but she knew it wouldn't be enough against 3 men. Elena returned with a Winchester rifle, checking quickly that it was loaded. "Get behind the sofa," she ordered Zelda. "And stay down." Before Zelda could argue, the front door burst open and 3 men stormed in. Virgil was in the lead, flanked by 2 other rough-looking outlaws Zelda recognized from her time with the gang. They all had their guns drawn. "Well, well," Virgil said, then stopped short when he saw Elena holding the rifle pointed directly at his chest. "Now, madam, let's not do anything stupid." "The only stupid thing would be you taking another step into my house," Elena said calmly. "This is private property and you're trespassing. I suggest you leave before I put a hole in you." One of the other men laughed. "You going to shoot all 3 of us, lady?" "I'll get at least 2 of you, and I guarantee one of you will be him," Elena said, keeping the rifle trained on Virgil. "Are you willing to bet your life that you won't be one of them?" Virgil's eyes narrowed. "We just want Zelda. Give her to us and we'll leave peaceful like." "She's under the protection of this household," Elena said, "which means you're not taking her anywhere. Now get out." The standoff seemed to stretch on forever, tension thick in the air. Zelda crouched behind the sofa, her derringer in her hand, praying that no one would shoot. She couldn't bear the thought of Elena getting hurt because of her. Then another voice cut through the tension, coming from the doorway behind the outlaws. "I believe the lady told you to leave." It was Lucas, and he wasn't alone. He had at least 6 men with him, all armed, all looking more than capable of handling themselves in a fight. At the center of the group was an older man with silver hair and a military bearing, his hand resting casually on his gun belt. Virgil spun around, his expression shifting from confident to worried. "This isn't your fight, cowboys." "It is now," said the silver-haired man. "I'm Richard Ramirez, and Lucas here tells me you boys have been harassing a woman who's under our protection. I don't take kindly to men who bully women." "Marcus Garrett isn't going to like this," Virgil warned. "Then you can tell Marcus Garrett to come talk to me himself," Richard said. "Because here's how things are going to be. Miss Turner is done with your gang. She's not going back and you're not going to bother her anymore. If Marcus has a problem with that, he can take it up with me and my men. We'll be happy to discuss it." The 3 outlaws looked at each other, clearly calculating their odds. Richard's men had them outnumbered and outgunned. Finally, Virgil holstered his weapon. "Fine. But Marcus isn't going to forget this. You're making a powerful enemy." "I've made worse," Richard said with a shrug. "Now get out of here before I have the sheriff arrest you for breaking and entering." The 3 men backed out of the house, keeping their hands visible until they were mounted on their horses and riding away. Only then did everyone lower their weapons. Elena set the rifle down with shaking hands, and Zelda emerged from behind the sofa on trembling legs. Lucas immediately crossed to her. "Are you all right? Did they hurt you?" "No, I'm fine." Elena was amazing. She held them off with that rifle. Zelda looked at Elena with admiration and gratitude. Elena waved it off. "I grew up on the frontier. My daddy made sure both Lucas and I knew how to handle firearms, though I admit my heart was pounding the whole time." Richard Ramirez approached, tipping his hat to Elena. "Madam, I apologize that we didn't get here sooner. Lucas rode out at dawn to tell me about the situation, and we came as quick as we could." "You arrived exactly when you needed to," Elena said. "Thank you for that." Richard turned to Zelda, his sharp eyes assessing her. "Miss Turner, Lucas tells me you're trying to leave your old life behind. Is that true?" "Yes, sir," Zelda said, meeting his gaze despite her nervousness. "I made terrible choices and I'm ashamed of them. I want to do better, be better. I just need a chance." "We all make mistakes," Richard said. "What matters is what we do after." Lucas seems to think you're worth helping, and I trust his judgment. So here's what I'm offering. You can come work at the Triple R, help our cook and housekeeper with their duties. It's honest work, pays decent, and you'd have a place to live on the ranch where Marcus and his men can't get to you easily. We've got enough hands to keep watch and make sure you're safe. Zelda felt tears welling up again. I don't know what to say. That's incredibly generous. Say yes, Lucas urged gently. It's a good solution, at least until we can figure out a more permanent arrangement. But what about Marcus? Zelda asked. He's not going to just give up. You saw how Virgil reacted. This is going to cause trouble for all of you. Let me worry about Marcus, Garrett, Richard said. I've dealt with his type before. Most outlaws are cowards at heart. They prey on the weak and run from the strong. Once he realizes that coming after you means going through a dozen armed ranch hands, he'll decide you're not worth the trouble. And if he doesn't, Zelda pressed, Richard's expression hardened, then we'll handle it. But one way or another, Miss Turner, you're going to get your second chance. That's a promise. Zelda looked at Lucas, who nodded encouragingly, then at Alina, who smiled. Finally, she turned back to Richard and took a deep breath. Yes, thank you. I accept your offer. Good, Richard said. Lucas, why don't you help Miss Turner gather her things? We should head back to the ranch before those outlaws decide to cause more trouble. While Lucas and Zelda went upstairs to collect her meager belongings, Alina pulled Richard aside. You think Marcus will really back off? She asked quietly. Honestly, I don't know, Richard admitted. Men like that can be unpredictable, but I meant what I said. I've got good men, and we can protect her. Plus, I sent word to the territorial marshal about Marcus Garrett and his gang. If I can provide information about their operations, the law might take care of the problem for us. Alina nodded. Lucas really cares about her, doesn't he? Seems like it, Richard said with a slight smile. Your brother's always had a soft heart for people in trouble. It's one of his best qualities, even if it sometimes gets him into situations like this. Upstairs, Lucas was helping Zelda pack her few possessions into a worn carpet bag. The room was quiet, filled with an awkward but not unpleasant tension. I can't believe you did all this for me, Zelda said softly. We only met yesterday. Sometimes you just know when someone needs help, Lucas said, and when someone is worth helping. You have good in you, Zelda. I could see it even in that restaurant when you were so worried about me getting involved. You didn't want anyone else getting hurt because of your mistakes. That tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. Zelda turned to face him, her green eyes searching his face. Why do you have so much faith in me? Lucas was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. After my mother died, my father gave up. He started drinking, couldn't hold down work, just stopped caring about anything. Lucas and I basically raised ourselves for a few years. Then one day, a neighbor, old Mrs. Patterson, she decided she'd had enough of watching us struggle. She took us in, fed us, made sure we went to school, taught us how to be decent people. When I asked her why she was helping us when our own father wouldn't, she said something I've never forgotten. What did she say? Zelda asked. She said that the world is full of people who will kick you when you're down, so it's up to good people to help others get back up. She said we all stumble, we all fall, but that doesn't mean we have to stay down. She gave my father second chances too, even after he disappointed her over and over. Eventually, it worked. He got sober, got his life together. He's been doing well for years now. So you help people because someone helped you, Zelda said. I help people because it's right, Lucas corrected gently. And because I've seen firsthand how powerful a second chance can be. My father could have died drunk in a ditch somewhere. Instead, he got to see Alina get married, got to rebuild his relationship with us. Everyone deserves that opportunity, Zelda, including you. Zelda felt something shift inside her chest, a loosening of the tight knot of shame and fear she had been carrying. Lucas saw her not as the person she had been, but as the person she could become. It was a gift she hadn't expected and didn't fully understand how to accept. "I'll try," she promised. "I'll try to be worthy of this chance." "You already are," Lucas said simply. They finished packing and went back downstairs, where the group was ready to head out. Alina hugged Zelda tightly before they left. "You take care of yourself," Alina said, "and don't be a stranger. Come visit when you can." "I will," Zelda promised. "Thank you for everything, for believing in me when you had no reason to." "I had plenty of reason," Alina said. "My brother believed in you. That's always been good enough for me." The ride out to the Triple R Ranch was beautiful, taking them through rolling hills dotted with juniper and pinon trees. The Sangre de Cristo Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still capped with snow despite the summer heat in the valleys. Richard and most of his men rode ahead, keeping watch for any signs of trouble, while Lucas stayed close to Zelda. "It's beautiful out here," Zelda said, breathing in the clean air. "I'd forgotten what it feels like to just enjoy the world without being afraid all the time." "Freedom's a precious thing," Lucas agreed. "You start to take it for granted until you don't have it anymore." "I didn't realize I was a prisoner until I tried to leave," Zelda said quietly. "Marcus made everything seem like choices, but really, once I was in, there was no way out. Every job I helped with made it harder to leave because I was more complicit, more guilty. It was like quicksand." "But you got out," Lucas pointed out. "That took courage, or cowardice," Zelda said bitterly. "I didn't leave because I suddenly found my moral compass. I left because I was terrified. That guard's blood splattered on my dress, and all I could think was that it could have been my blood, that Marcus was crazy enough to kill anyone who got in his way, even me." "Fear isn't always cowardice," Lucas said. "Sometimes fear is what keeps us alive, what pushes us to make necessary changes. You left a dangerous situation. That's survival, not cowardice." They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the rhythmic sound of hoofbeats and the creak of saddle leather creating a peaceful backdrop. Zelda found herself relaxing despite everything, found herself watching Lucas from the corner of her eye. He sat his horse with easy confidence, clearly at home in the saddle. His profile was strong, handsome in a rugged way that matched the landscape around them. She shouldn't be thinking about him like that, Zelda scolded herself. She had no business developing feelings for anyone, especially not someone as genuinely good as Lucas Quinn. He was helping her out of kindness, nothing more. And she was a mess, a woman with a criminal past and no real future. Lucas deserved better than that. But even as she thought it, Zelda couldn't stop the small flutter in her chest when Lucas turned and smiled at her, his blue eyes warm in the afternoon sun. The Triple R Ranch came into view as they crested a hill, spread out across a green valley with a river running through it. The main house was a large adobe structure with a covered porch, surrounded by various outbuildings, barns, corrals, and bunkhouses. Cattle grazed peacefully in the distance, and Zelda could see several cowboys working with horses in one of the corrals. "It's impressive," Zelda said. "Richard built it up from nothing," Lucas said with evident pride. "When he first bought this land 15 years ago, there was nothing here but scrub brush and prairie dogs. He worked hard to make it what it is today." They rode into the main yard, and several ranch hands came to take their horses. Richard dismounted and gestured for Zelda to follow him. "I'll introduce you to Maria, our cook and housekeeper. She runs the main house and you'll be working under her direction. Fair warning, she's got strong opinions and doesn't tolerate laziness, but she's fair and she's kind. You'll like her." Maria turned out to be a stout Mexican woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair and sharp, dark eyes that missed nothing. She looked Zelda up and down appraisingly when Richard explained the situation. "So you need a place to hide from bad men, eh?" Maria said in accented English. "And you know how to work, to cook and clean and sew?" "Yes, madam," Zelda said. "I'm a hard worker and I'm grateful for the opportunity." "We see about that," Maria said, but her tone wasn't unkind. "Come, I show you where you sleep and what your duties will be." Lucas caught Zelda's eye and gave her an encouraging nod before Maria led her away into the house. The interior was cool and pleasant, with thick adobe walls that kept out the heat. Maria showed her a small but clean room off the kitchen. "This is yours," Maria said. "You keep it tidy. Breakfast is at dawn, lunch at noon, dinner at sunset. We feed all the ranch hands, so cooking is much work. You help me prepare meals, serve food, clean up after. Also washing and mending clothes, keeping the house clean. You understand?" "Yes, madam," Zelda said. "I understand." Maria's expression softened slightly. "You look tired, child. Like you carry heavy weight. Mr. Richard, he is good man. If he says you stay here, you stay here. And Maria, she protects what is hers. You work for me now, so I protect you too. These bad men, they want to bother you, they have to go through Maria first." Zelda felt tears threatening again. "Thank you. I promise I'll work hard. I won't let you down." "We see," Maria said, but she patted Zelda's shoulder kindly. "Now you rest a little, then come help me with dinner. We have hungry cowboys to feed." After Maria left, Zelda sat on the edge of the narrow bed and let herself cry. Not from sadness or fear, but from relief and gratitude. These people, strangers who owed her nothing, were giving her a chance to rebuild her life. Lucas had seen something in her worth saving, and now she had to prove him right. She had to become the person he believed she could be. The days that followed settled into a rhythm that Zelda found deeply comforting. She woke before dawn to help Maria prepare breakfast for the ranch hands. Usually simple but hearty fare like biscuits, gravy, bacon, and eggs. Then came the cleaning, the laundry, preparations for lunch, more cleaning, and finally dinner. It was exhausting work, but honest work, and Zelda threw herself into it with determination. The ranch hands were respectful, if somewhat curious about the new woman working in the main house. Richard had made it clear that Zelda was under his protection, and no one questioned the boss. Lucas stopped by the main house every evening after finishing his work with the cattle, usually finding some excuse to check in on how Zelda was settling in. "You don't have to keep checking on me," Zelda told him one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I'm fine, really. Maria keeps me too busy to get into trouble." "Maria keeps everyone too busy," Lucas said with a grin. "But that's not why I stopped by. I just like talking to you." Zelda felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. Over the past 2 weeks, she and Lucas had fallen into an easy friendship. They talked about everything and nothing, shared stories about their pasts, both good and bad, and simply enjoyed each other's company. Zelda had never had a friend like Lucas, someone who listened without judgment and offered support without expecting anything in return. "Tell me something," Zelda said. "Why aren't you married? Surely there are plenty of women in Colfax who would love to catch the eye of a handsome cowboy like you." Lucas laughed. "Handsome, huh? Well, thank you for that. Truth is, I've just never met anyone who made me want to settle down. I've always believed that when you meet the right person, you just know. Everything feels easy and right, like they fit into your life perfectly." "That sounds nice," Zelda said wistfully, "like something from a storybook." "You don't believe in that kind of connection?" Lucas asked. "I don't know if I'm allowed to believe in it anymore," Zelda said honestly. "People like me, with pasts like mine, we don't get happy endings." "Says who?" Lucas challenged. Zelda, you're one of the kindest, hardest-working, most genuine people I've ever met. Your past doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do now, how you treat people, who you choose to be. And the person you're choosing to be is pretty remarkable. Zelda turned to look at him, her heart beating faster. Lucas, I need you to understand something. I have feelings for you. I've tried not to, tried to tell myself it's just gratitude or relief at being safe, but it's more than that. But I can't act on those feelings. You deserve someone without my baggage, without my history. Someone good and pure who hasn't done the things I've done. Lucas was quiet for a long moment, his blue eyes locked on hers. Then he reached out and gently took her hand. Zelda Turner, I've had feelings for you since the moment I saw you in that restaurant, scared but trying so hard to be brave. Every day since then, those feelings have only gotten stronger. I don't care about your past. I care about you, about the woman you are right now. And I think you're pretty wonderful. Lucas, Zelda whispered, torn between hope and fear. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow, Lucas said with a soft smile. I'm just asking you to give us a chance. Let's see where this goes. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people getting to know each other and seeing if maybe they might have something special. Zelda wanted to say yes. Every fiber of her being wanted to say yes, but the fear of disappointing him, of her past catching up and destroying whatever they might build, held her back. What about Marcus? She asked. He's still out there. He hasn't tried anything since that day at Alina's, but I know he hasn't forgotten. What if he comes back? What if he hurts you or Richard or anyone else because of me? Then we'll deal with it together, Lucas said firmly. But you can't live your life afraid of what might happen, Zelda. That's not living, that's just surviving, and you deserve more than that. Before Zelda could respond, Maria called from inside that dinner was ready to serve. The moment was broken, but Lucas squeezed her hand before letting go. Just think about it, he said. That's all I ask. Zelda thought about little else over the next few days. She caught herself watching Lucas when he didn't know she was looking. Noticed how he was always kind to the younger ranch hands, how he worked harder than anyone else and never complained. She saw the way he treated the animals with gentleness, the way he respected Maria and always thanked her for meals, the way he made everyone around him feel valued and important. She was falling in love with him, Zelda realized. Maybe she had already fallen in love with him. And that terrified her even more than Marcus Garrett ever could. But Lucas was right about one thing. She couldn't live in fear forever. At some point, she had to take a chance on happiness, even if it might not last, even if her past might rise up to destroy it. Because the alternative was never truly living at all. It was a warm evening in early July when Marcus Garrett finally made his move. Zelda had been at the Triple R for nearly a month, and she had started to believe that maybe Richard was right. Maybe Marcus had decided she wasn't worth the trouble. She should have known better. She was in the kitchen helping Maria prepare bread for the next day when they heard gunshots outside. Not the occasional shot of someone hunting or dealing with a predator, but multiple rapid shots, the sound of a gun battle. Get down, Maria ordered. Pulling Zelda away from the window through the door, they could hear shouting, more gunfire, the sound of horses and chaos. Zelda's heart hammered in her chest. This was her fault. Marcus had come for her, and now good people were going to get hurt. I have to go out there, Zelda said. I have to stop this. Don't be stupid, Maria said sharply. You go out there, you get killed. That helps no one. But Zelda couldn't stay hidden while others fought her battle. She grabbed a rifle from the rack by the door, checked that it was loaded, and ran out onto the porch before Maria could stop her. The ranch yard was chaos. Marcus and at least a dozen men had attacked, clearly intending to overwhelm the ranch's defenses through sheer numbers. But Richard's ranch hands were experienced and well-armed, and they had the advantage of defensive positions. The fight was fierce, bullets flying in both directions, but the outlaws were being driven back. Zelda saw Lucas taking cover behind a water trough, returning fire at two outlaws who had him pinned down. Without thinking, she raised her rifle and fired at one of the outlaws, clipping him in the shoulder and causing him to drop his weapon. Lucas used the distraction to take down the other man with a well-placed shot to his leg. Then she saw Marcus. He was on horseback at the edge of the yard, directing his men, and his eyes were scanning the area, clearly looking for her. When his gaze landed on Zelda standing on the porch with a rifle, his face twisted with rage. "There she is," Marcus shouted, wheeling his horse toward her. Richard appeared from behind one of the outbuildings, his rifle trained on Marcus. "That's far enough, Garrett. Your fight is with me, not her." "Like hell it is," Marcus snarled. "That woman betrayed me, cost me good men, cost me money. She pays for that." "She doesn't owe you anything," Richard said calmly, "and you're not getting to her, so you have two choices. You can ride out of here now with what's left of your men and we'll call it even. Or you can push this fight, and I guarantee you won't walk away." Marcus looked around the yard. Half his men were down, either wounded or dead, and the ranch hands still had plenty of fight in them. He was losing and he knew it, but his pride wouldn't let him just ride away. "This isn't over," Marcus said, his eyes locked on Zelda. "You hear me, Zelda? This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Lucas said, stepping into view with his revolver drawn. "You lost, Marcus. Your gang is done. I heard the territorial marshal is already looking for you on 3 counts of murder and a dozen robberies. You keep pushing this, and you're just making it easier for him to find you." Marcus's horse danced nervously, sensing his rider's agitation. For a moment, Zelda thought he might charge anyway, might choose death over retreat. But then he jerked his horse's head around and spurred toward the edge of the property. "Fall back," he shouted to his remaining men. "We're done here." The outlaws retreated in disarray, leaving their dead and wounded behind. Richard's men didn't pursue, content to let them go. The immediate danger was over. Zelda's legs gave out, and she sat down hard on the porch steps, the rifle clattering beside her. Lucas ran to her, dropping to his knees in front of her and taking her face in his hands. "Are you hurt? Did anything hit you?" His voice was urgent, his eyes scanning her for injuries. "I'm fine," Zelda said, though she was shaking. "I'm sorry. This is my fault. All of this is my fault." "No, it's not," Lucas said firmly. "This is Marcus's fault for being a prideful, violent man who can't accept that someone wanted out of his gang. None of this is on you." Richard approached, reloading his rifle. "Everyone all right? Any of our men hit?" "Jackson took a bullet in the arm and Pete got grazed on the leg, but nothing serious," one of the ranch hands reported. 3 of theirs dead, 4 wounded." "Get our wounded to Maria, she'll patch them up," Richard ordered. "And someone ride for the sheriff. He'll want to know about this." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The sheriff arrived with a deputy, taking statements and examining the bodies of the dead outlaws. One of the wounded outlaws, facing a murder charge anyway, sang like a canary about Marcus Garrett's operations. Locations of hideouts, planned robberies, everything the law would need to finally bring the gang down. By the time everything was settled and the sheriff had left with the surviving outlaws in custody, it was well past midnight. Most of the ranch hands had gone to bed, exhausted from the fight. Lucas found Zelda sitting on the porch again, staring out at the dark landscape. "Can't sleep?" he asked, settling down beside her. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the fight," Zelda said. "I keep thinking about how badly things could have gone, how you or Richard or any of those good men could have been killed because of me." "But we weren't," Lucas pointed out. "We're all fine." And thanks to tonight, the law finally has enough to put Marcus away for good. He'll hang for murder, Zelda. This nightmare is finally over." "Is it really, though?" Zelda asked quietly. "Even if Marcus hangs, I can't undo the things I did. I can't bring that guard back to life, can't return all the money that was stolen, can't fix the damage I caused." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "No, you can't. But you can spend the rest of your life being better, doing better. You can make sure that guard's death meant something by becoming someone he would have been proud to know. You can honor his sacrifice by living a good life." Zelda turned to look at Lucas, tears streaming down her face. "How do you always know the right thing to say?" "I don't," Lucas admitted. "I just say what I feel and I hope it helps." He reached out and gently wiped away her tears. "Zelda, I meant what I said before. I have feelings for you. Real, deep feelings. And I know you're scared. I know you think you don't deserve happiness, but I'm asking you to take a chance. Take a chance on us, on me. Let me love you the way you deserve to be loved." Zelda's breath caught in her throat. "You love me." "I'm falling in love with you," Lucas said honestly. "I think I have been since the day we met, and I think maybe you feel the same way." Zelda nodded, unable to speak around the emotion clogging her throat. Lucas smiled, that warm, genuine smile that made her feel safe and cherished. "Then that's enough," he said softly. "We'll figure out the rest as we go." He leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. But Zelda didn't want to pull away. She wanted this, wanted him, wanted the chance at happiness he was offering. When his lips met hers, gentle and sweet, it felt like coming home. The kiss was brief but perfect, and when they pulled apart, Zelda was smiling for the first time in what felt like forever. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "I'm still ashamed of my past." "That's okay," Lucas said. "We'll work through it together, but Zelda, you need to hear this. You need to really hear it. We all deserve a second chance. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has things in their past they wish they could change. But that doesn't mean we don't deserve happiness, don't deserve love. You are worthy of good things. You are worthy of being loved. And I intend to spend as long as you'll let me proving that to you." Zelda leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder as he wrapped his arm around her. They sat there on the porch as the stars wheeled overhead, two broken people finding healing in each other's presence. The next few weeks brought rapid changes. The territorial marshal tracked down Marcus Garrett and the remnants of his gang, bringing them all to justice. Marcus was tried and convicted of murder, sentenced to hang. Zelda was called to testify, and though it was one of the hardest things she had ever done, she told the truth about her involvement with the gang. The judge, considering her testimony and her clear remorse, decided not to press charges against her. He noted that she had been coerced into the gang's operations, had never directly participated in violence, and had left as soon as she understood the full extent of their crimes. He called it a second chance and told her not to waste it. Zelda had cried when the judge announced his decision, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. Lucas had been there in the courtroom, his steady presence giving her strength. Richard and Alina had come too, a show of support that meant everything to Zelda. With the threat of Marcus gone and her legal troubles resolved, Zelda began to truly build her new life. She continued working at the Triple R Ranch, and Maria grew to see her as almost a daughter. Richard increased her wages and made it clear she was welcome to stay as long as she wanted. But the best part of Zelda's new life was Lucas. They courted properly, with Lucas coming to call on her in the evenings, bringing her flowers from the meadow, taking her on picnic rides to beautiful spots on the ranch. They talked for hours, learning everything about each other, building a foundation of friendship and trust that made their love grow stronger every day. 6 months after that terrible night when Zelda had first met Lucas in the restaurant, he asked her to marry him. They were sitting by the river that ran through the Triple R property, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "I know it hasn't been that long," Lucas said, taking her hand, "but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You're the person I want to wake up next to every morning and fall asleep beside every night. You're the person I want to build a life with, raise children with, grow old with. Zelda Turner, will you marry me?" Zelda looked into his blue eyes, so full of love and hope, and felt all her fears melt away. This good, kind man loved her despite everything. He saw her at her worst and still thought she was worthy. How could she say anything but yes? "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Lucas Quinn, I will marry you." Lucas let out a whoop of joy and swept her into his arms, spinning her around until they were both dizzy and laughing. When he set her down, he kissed her thoroughly, pouring all his love and happiness into that kiss. They were married 2 months later in Colfax, in a small church with everyone who mattered to them in attendance. Eleanor stood as Zelda's maid of honor, wearing a beautiful blue dress that Zelda had made for her. Richard walked Zelda down the aisle, giving her away with tears in his eyes. Maria cried throughout the entire ceremony, happy tears that she didn't bother to hide. Zelda wore a simple white dress she had sewn herself, with lace at the collar and cuffs. She had never felt more beautiful than she did when she saw Lucas waiting for her at the altar, looking at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the union, Zelda held her breath, half expecting someone to stand up and list all the reasons why she didn't deserve Lucas. But the church remained silent, and then Lucas squeezed her hand reassuringly, and she remembered. She did deserve this. She deserved love and happiness, and a second chance. Their wedding night was spent in a hotel in Colfax, and Zelda had never known such tenderness and passion could exist. Lucas made her feel cherished and desired, washing away any lingering shame about her past with his gentle words and loving touch. They built a small house on the edge of the Triple R property, a wedding gift from Richard, who had come to care for both of them deeply. Lucas continued working as a ranch hand, while Zelda started a small dressmaking business from their home, taking orders from women in Colfax and the surrounding ranches. Her skills as a seamstress were quickly in demand, and she found joy in creating beautiful things for people. Their first year of marriage was blissful. They learned how to live together, how to navigate the small disagreements and compromises that came with sharing a life. They laughed together, worked together, built a home filled with love and warmth. Lucas never once threw her past in her face, never made her feel less than worthy. And slowly, gradually, Zelda began to forgive herself. In the spring of 1880, Zelda discovered she was pregnant. She was nervous, worried about becoming a mother when she still sometimes doubted her own worth. But Lucas was overjoyed, and his excitement was contagious. "You're going to be an amazing mother," he assured her. "You're kind and strong and full of love. Our child is going to be so lucky to have you." Their son was born in December, a healthy baby boy with Lucas's blue eyes and Zelda's dark hair. They named him Samuel, after Lucas's grandfather, and Zelda fell completely in love the moment she held him. This tiny person, so innocent and perfect, was theirs. She and Lucas had created life together, had brought something beautiful into the world. Being a mother transformed Zelda in ways she hadn't expected. Every time she looked at Samuel, she was filled with determination to be worthy of him, to be the kind of person he could be proud of as he grew up. She told herself that no matter what she had done in the past, she would spend every day of the rest of her life being the best mother, the best wife, the best person she could be. Samuel was followed 2 years later by a daughter they named Rose, and then 3 years after that by another son they named James. Their house was filled with noise and laughter and the beautiful chaos of family life. Lucas was a wonderful father, patient and playful, teaching their children to ride and rope and treat others with kindness. Eleanor and her husband James had children too, and the cousins grew up close, spending summers running wild on the ranch property. Maria adopted them all as grandchildren, spoiling them with sweets and stories. Richard retired from active ranching and spent his days teaching the children about the land and the animals, passing on his wisdom. Zelda's dressmaking business continued to thrive, and she took on an apprentice, a young woman named Clara who reminded Zelda of herself at that age, desperate for a chance and a way to support herself. Zelda paid her fairly and treated her with respect, remembering what it felt like to be undervalued and overlooked. The years passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. Zelda and Lucas celebrated their 10th anniversary, then their 15th, then their 20th. Their children grew into good, kind adults who made them proud. Samuel became a doctor, traveling to Denver for medical school, and then returning to open a practice in Colfax. Rose married a rancher from a neighboring spread and had 4 children of her own. James followed in his father's footsteps, working the Triple R and eventually becoming foreman when Lucas decided to slow down. Through it all, Lucas and Zelda's love only grew stronger. They still took evening walks together, still talked for hours about everything and nothing, still looked at each other with the same love and passion they had felt as newlyweds. One evening, on their 25th wedding anniversary, they sat on the porch of their house watching the sun set over the mountains. Their grandchildren were playing in the yard, their laughter floating on the warm breeze. Zelda leaned against Lucas's shoulder, feeling utterly content. "Do you ever think about your past anymore?" Lucas asked quietly. Zelda considered the question. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but not with the same shame and fear I used to feel. Now when I think about it, I remember that it led me here to you, to this life we've built. I'll always regret the things I did, the choices I made. But I've tried to honor that guard's memory by being better, by raising good children and treating people with kindness. I hope that counts for something." "It counts for everything," Lucas said, kissing the top of her head. "I'm so proud of the person you've become, Zelda. But really, you were always this person. You just needed someone to believe in you so you could believe in yourself." "You saved me," Zelda said softly. "No," Lucas corrected gently. "I just gave you a hand up. You saved yourself by having the courage to change, to take that second chance and make something beautiful out of it." Zelda turned to look at her husband, this good man who had seen her at her absolute lowest and loved her anyway. His hair was silver now, and there were lines around his eyes from years of squinting in the sun and laughing at their children's antics. But his blue eyes still held that same warmth and kindness that had drawn her to him that first night in the restaurant all those years ago. "I love you," she said. "I love you so much it still sometimes takes my breath away." "I love you too," Lucas said. "Every single day I love you more than the day before. You're my heart, Zelda Quinn. You always will be." As the sun dipped below the horizon and their grandchildren were called inside for dinner by their parents, Zelda reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had been so lost, so broken, so convinced that she didn't deserve redemption. But Lucas had shown her that everyone makes mistakes, everyone deserves forgiveness, and everyone has the capacity for change. She thought about that terrified young woman who had stood in front of a cracked mirror in Colfax, unable to wash away the stains of her past. That woman had been so certain that happiness was beyond her reach, that she would always be defined by her worst choices. How wrong she had been. Because here she was, 25 years later, surrounded by family and love, living a life beyond anything she had dared to dream. She had been ashamed of her past mistakes, but the cowboy had said they all deserve a second chance. And he had been right. Lucas stood and offered Zelda his hand, pulling her to her feet. "Come on, Mrs. Quinn. I believe our daughter is serving that pot roast you taught her to make, and I'm starving." Zelda took his hand, letting him lead her inside to where their family waited. As she walked through the door into the warm, lamp-lit house filled with the people she loved most in the world, Zelda sent up a silent prayer of gratitude. "Thank you for Lucas," she prayed. "Thank you for second chances. Thank you for teaching me that shame and guilt don't have to be the end of the story, that redemption and love are possible even for people like me." The house was full of noise and warmth, multiple conversations happening at once as their children and grandchildren gathered around the large table. Samuel was telling a story about a difficult case he had treated, his hands moving expressively as he described the procedure. Rose was showing off her youngest baby, just 6 months old and already smiling at everyone. James and his wife were discussing the new bull they had bought for breeding, debating its lineage and potential. Elena and her husband had joined them too, along with their grown children. It was a full house, crowded and chaotic and absolutely perfect. Maria, now in her 80s but still sharp as a tack, presided over the meal with obvious satisfaction, making sure everyone had enough food and scolding anyone who didn't eat enough. As Zelda looked around the table at all these faces, these people who were her family by blood and by choice, she felt overwhelming love and gratitude. This was her legacy. Not the mistakes of her youth, not the year she spent with an outlaw gang, but this. These good people, this love, this life built on honesty and hard work and second chances. After dinner, when the dishes were cleared and the children were playing outside in the twilight, Zelda found herself alone in the kitchen with Maria. The older woman was supervising as Zelda washed the last of the dishes, offering commentary and corrections as she had done for over 25 years. "You know," Maria said suddenly, "when Lucas first brought you to the ranch, I was not sure about you. You looked so scared, so broken. I thought maybe you would run away again, or maybe you would bring trouble to Mr. Richards' ranch." "I almost did run," Zelda admitted. "Several times in those first few weeks, I thought about disappearing in the night. I was so sure I didn't deserve the chance everyone was giving me." "But you stayed," Maria said. "And you worked hard and you became good woman, good wife, good mother. You proved me wrong and I am happy to be wrong about you, Zelda Quinn." Zelda hugged the older woman, tears pricking at her eyes. "Thank you, Maria, for everything. For taking a chance on me, for teaching me, for becoming like a mother to me when I had no one." Maria patted her back firmly. "We are family. That is what family does. We help each other, we forgive each other, we give each other chances to be better, is the way it should be." As the evening wound down and their guests began to leave, each with hugs and promises to visit again soon, Zelda and Lucas stood on their porch waving goodbye. When the last wagon had disappeared down the road and they were alone again, Lucas pulled Zelda close. "Happy anniversary, my love," he said softly. "Happy anniversary," Zelda replied. "Thank you for 25 amazing years. Thank you for loving me when I couldn't love myself. Thank you for seeing who I could be instead of only who I was." "Thank you for having the courage to become that person," Lucas said. "Thank you for saying yes when I asked you to marry me, for building this life with me, for giving me 3 incredible children and now grandchildren. You've made me happier than I ever thought possible." They stood together in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the night, the crickets chirping, the distant call of an owl, the soft rustle of wind through the grass. The stars overhead were brilliant, undimmed by any artificial light, and the air smelled of summer and home. "Do you remember that first night?" Zelda asked. "In the restaurant in Colfax when Virgil threatened me and you stepped in?" "Of course I remember," Lucas said. "That was the night my life changed forever." "Mine too," Zelda said. "I was so scared, so convinced that I was beyond help. And then you appeared like something out of a story, and you treated me like I mattered, like I was worth protecting. No one had done that in so long." "You've always been worth protecting," Lucas said. "Worth loving, worth fighting for." "I knew that the moment I saw you, even if it took you longer to believe it." Zelda turned in his arms to face him. Even in the darkness, she could see the love in his eyes, the same love that had been there from the beginning. They had built something remarkable together, something that had started with a simple act of kindness and grown into a lifetime of love. As they went inside, arms around each other, Zelda thought about the girl she had been and the woman she had become. The journey between those two people had been long and difficult, marked by shame and fear and the hard work of redemption. But it had been worth it. Every struggle, every moment of doubt, every time she had to choose between the easy path and the right one. It had all been worth it to arrive here, at this place of peace and love. In the years that followed, Zelda and Lucas continued to age gracefully together. They watched their grandchildren grow and start families of their own, giving them great-grandchildren to spoil. They celebrated their 30th anniversary, then their 35th, each year bringing new joys and challenges. Richard passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 85, leaving the Triple R to James with instructions that Lucas and Zelda would always have a home there as long as they lived. Maria followed 2 years later, and Zelda mourned the woman who had become like a mother to her. Elena and her husband celebrated their 40th anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathering just as Lucas and Zelda's did, two families who had grown up intertwined and remained close through the generations. When Lucas and Zelda celebrated their 40th anniversary, they did so quietly, just the two of them and their children and grandchildren. Samuel gave a toast, his voice thick with emotion. "My parents taught me what love really means," he said. "Not the easy kind of love that fades when things get hard, but the deep, enduring kind that grows stronger with every challenge overcome. My father once told me that everyone deserves a second chance, and he proved it by giving my mother that chance. And my mother took that chance and built something beautiful with it. They've shown all of us what it means to be good people, to treat others with kindness, to never give up on the people we love. To Mom and Dad, thank you for everything." There wasn't a dry eye in the house when Samuel finished. Zelda and Lucas held hands, looking at each other with the same love that had been there 40 years ago, only deeper now, richer for all the years and experiences they had shared. On their 45th anniversary, Lucas woke feeling unwell. He tried to brush it off, but Zelda insisted he see Samuel. Their son examined him with a grave expression, then delivered the news they had been dreading. "It's your heart, Dad. It's weak. There are treatments we can try, things that might give you more time, but I need you to understand that this is serious." Lucas took the news with his usual calm acceptance. "How much time?" "I don't know," Samuel said honestly. "Could be months, could be years. But you need to take it easy, no more hard physical labor." Zelda felt her world tilt on its axis. The thought of losing Lucas, of facing a world without him in it, was unbearable. But she forced herself to be strong, to support him the way he had always supported her. They made the most of the time they had. Lucas did as Samuel advised, cutting back on physical work and spending more time with family. They took long, slow walks together, reminiscing about their years together. They sat on the porch in the evenings, holding hands and watching the sunsets, making new memories while cherishing the old ones. Lucas lived for 2 more years after his diagnosis. Good years filled with love and family. When he finally passed, it was peacefully in his sleep, with Zelda beside him holding his hand. His last words to her were, "I love you. Thank you for 47 amazing years. You were the best thing that ever happened to me." Zelda grieved deeply, but found comfort in their children and grandchildren, in the life they had built together, in the knowledge that Lucas had died happy and loved. She continued to live in their house on the Triple R, surrounded by family, continuing her dressmaking, watching her great-grandchildren grow. She lived to be 87 years old, sharp-minded and active until the very end. When she passed away peacefully in her sleep on a spring morning in 1923, her children gathered to plan her funeral. They buried her next to Lucas, their graves marked with simple headstones that bore their names and the dates of their lives. But beneath their names, at Zelda's insistence years before, was a simple inscription that told their whole story. We all deserve a second chance. We all deserve to be loved. At Zelda's funeral, Samuel spoke again, his voice now that of an old man himself, but still strong and clear. "My mother once told me that she didn't think people like her got happy endings," he said. "She was wrong. Because of my father's faith in her, and because of her own courage to change, she got not just a happy ending but a happy life. She got 47 years of marriage to a man who adored her, 3 children who loved her fiercely, grandchildren and great-grandchildren who will carry her memory forward. She got to build something beautiful from the ashes of her mistakes. That's more than a happy ending. That's a triumph." The whole town of Colfax turned out for her funeral, testament to the woman she had become. The shy, frightened girl who had arrived in town in 1878, running from her past and drowning in shame, had transformed into a pillar of the community. She had given back more than she had taken, loved more than she had hurt, built more than she had destroyed. Her legacy wasn't the year she spent with an outlaw gang. It was the decades she spent being a loving wife, devoted mother, skilled craftswoman, generous friend, and living example of the power of redemption. It was the lives she had touched, the people she had helped, the love she had spread. Because a cowboy had looked at a scared young woman and said, "We all deserve a second chance," and a scared young woman had been brave enough to take it. That was the story Zelda's great-grandchildren would tell their children, and those children would tell theirs. Not a story about mistakes and shame, but a story about love and redemption, about second chances and the courage to change. A story about a woman who had been ashamed of her past, but learned to build a future worth being proud of. A story about how it's never too late to become the person you were meant to be. The end.